Hey guys, no intro for this one because we're just continuing from our previous video. So this is 9.2 example 5. Make sure you watch the previous video before you jump in here. But we just didn't have enough time to give this example a proper explanation, so I wanted to make sure to do that. So what we're going to do is on the example 5, we're now going to say, well, what if I'm given a graph? Can I write the factored form from there? So again, we have our steps here that I highly recommend you write down. Okay, so step 1, if you're given a graph, first find the x-intercepts, okay? We know that because they are right here on the line. Step 2 is then to just write a quadratic equation in factored form. We're going to use the letters P and Q to represent our two solutions, okay? So it doesn't matter which one's which, but one of these is P and one of these is Q. Okay, we're just going left to right. It's really just a way for us to write out this generic version of the equation, which you're going to need to memorize. This is factored form. And P and Q are our x-intercepts. Okay, so that's what you need to remember. P and Q are our x-intercepts. Okay. So you basically, your factored form is your x plus or minus something, your on two of those, plus or minus your x-intercepts. And then A is still A. It's still that beginning information that's telling us if we're facing up or down and if we're wider or narrower. Okay, so on this right here, we're going to plug in the information. So it does look like we are negative minus, sorry, x minus your x value, x-intercept, and x minus your other x-intercept. So they plugged in the negative 5 and 1, and they got x plus 5, x minus 1. Now, we don't know what A is yet, so you would probably have to solve that when going through, and it looks like they did that here in step 3, but you have this factored part of your equation for now. Then in step 3, they use the third point to solve for A. So they picked another point, and in this case, they picked the vertex. It's probably going to be the easiest one for you to find. And they plugged it in here as X and Y. Then they solved for A. So once they plugged that in, they solved for A and got 1. And our final equation or expression is X plus 5 times X minus 1. And so just in case you were concerned about why we're doing this last step, just because I have my x-intercepts doesn't mean I have my full parabola. There are an infinite number of parabolas that pass through negative 5, 0, and 1, 0, right? We have positive ones, negative ones, short ones, long, skinny ones, short, fat ones. In order to figure out which one is correct, you have to determine A. A is what's going to tell me what is that kind of slope of these lines, right? Am I going to be really skinny and narrow or wide and fat? That's what you need to find. So on this try it, you're going to do it on your own, but here are your steps. The first thing you're going to do is identify your x-intercepts on your graph. Then you're going to write it in the quadratic, in the factored form. And this is your quadratic formula in factor form right here. So all you got to do is remember that your x-intercepts are P and Q. And then you're going to plug them into this equation down here and then solve for, I guess I forgot step 3. Step 3 is then to solve for A. We're going to pick, you need a third point, which I would probably use our vertex. Okay, use vertex. You can use any third point, but your vertex is going to be the one that it's going to be easiest to use. Okay, and I think, and then we'll go over everything here. All right, so going over both the last video and this one, our concept summary, we learned about the zero product property, about how I can turn A or B into 0 and solve my quadratic equation that way. It needs to be in factored form. Okay, The way that we did that was so one of the things we did was we learned that we can turn a equation into a quadratic equation by turning it into standard form. Okay. And that's how they got 0 over here and -8 on this side. Okay. So we're going to turn this into standard form, and then they factored their equation. After that, they used the zero product property to find your two solutions. And then when we're using a graph, we're looking at our graph. This is P and this is Q, although remember, it doesn't matter which one's which. Those are our x-intercepts, and we can use those to plug into a graph or into our equation. We have our A times x minus P times x minus Q in order to make, equals 0, in order to make a factored quadratic equation. We can also take this information and use it to graph our P and Q and then find our vertex. Okay, and we found our vertex by finding the average of our x-intercepts. You can still do negative b over 2a, but you would have to kind of unfactor this to find b. So it might just be easier to then just take your p plus q, divide by 2, and that's going to be your x of your vertex. And then plug back in to find your y. All right, good luck.